Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the PSU 365 podcast on PennState.Rivals.com. As always, I'm your host, Richie Schneiderite, joined as always with my co-host, Dylan Callahan Crawley. Dylan, some interesting / exciting news, I think, for some fans at least today from Penn State, as they announced, or I shouldn't say they announced, they released a new roster update, and it has 4 different position changes, and I'm going to highlight them one through 4 real quick before we go through them. Abdul Carter, defensive end. Tyrece Mills back to linebacker from former safety. Lamont Payne goes from corner to safety, and Mehki Flowers, I got that one wrong, goes from safety to wide receiver. So let's just go one by one real quick. Abdul Carter, I would say that's pretty big news considering two-time All Big Ten linebacker.
That's obviously the major news out of these roster changes for Penn State on Thursday. Just like you said, two-time All Big Ten linebacker and Abdul Carter, somebody who is one of the best linebackers in the country. Maybe didn't have the sophomore season that many expected him to have in 2023, but definitely somebody who is going to be, I know the Big Ten doesn't technically do all Big Ten teams, but if they did, he would have been an All Big Ten preseason guy. He's going to end up on those Big Ten players to watch list at the conference releases. And I wouldn't be shocked if he would have landed on some potential preseason All-American list. But, yeah, he's making the move to defensive end, which isn't too surprising. His size, explosiveness, and pass rushing skill set should allow that to be a seamless transition there. And I think that tells you a lot about what Penn State feels like they have in that linebacker room now with Abdul Carter moving to defensive end. And it makes an already very good defensive line even better. And I would now presume that you're going to see a front four for Penn State of June.and, Hakeem. At defensive tackle, you could see 3 or 4 guys start, but on a defensive end, at least, Nittany, Dennis Sutton on one side, Abdul Carter on the other side, and then in the middle, you have 3 or 4 guys there who could start in Hakeem Beamon, Devon Ellies, June.and, and there's a couple other guys there who could also push for some starting time. So Penn State's defensive line is in a really good shape after the Abdul Carter move. And like I said, it tells you what they feel like they have in that linebacker room with those young guys too.
Yeah, this is definitely going to help out Deion Barnes this upcoming season as the defensive line coach. It actually makes it a little bit easier, I feel like, for him. Because they did lose Chop Robinson, they did lose Adisa Isaac, and both of them are most likely going to be drafted in this upcoming NFL draft. So interesting replacement. I do think he's going to work out pretty well because, like you said, he's a really good pass rusher as is from that kind of outside linebacker spot. But pushing him down a level, adding 15 pounds already of muscle, and we're not even in middle of February, not even March yet. So it's going to be interesting to see.
I'll be interested to see what happens with that outside. I guess he was the will linebacker for Penn State. I'll be interested to see what happens with that will linebacker spot. Is that a spot that Keon Wiley just steps into as the starter for Penn State next year, or do they move some pieces around there as well? Because obviously you would think Kobe King is locked into a starting job. And Tony Rojas, I'd imagine, could be starting or should be starting this year as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at the will spot, but Penn State is clearly confident in the group they have at that position.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Tony Rojas just because he popped up recently in one of the Instagram photos. It looks like he added another 12 pounds too. So I guess, like you said, he probably could start next year.
I would absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say 100%. I never like giving things absolute certainty, but I definitely think there's a good chance Tony Rojas is starting either at the will or Sam come next season.
Tyrece Mills started out at linebacker, former JUCO Lackawanna kid. Started out at linebacker, moved back to safety. I think he was actually listed as a safety in our recruiting database, but now he's back at linebacker, which I believe might be his final season, or does he have 1-2 more? Besides the point, any chance we see him out there a lot this year?
And yeah, I believe did have him at safety, and he was signed by Penn State as a defensive back, but his first camp, he came in started fall camp as a linebacker. I believe he got banged up in 2022, so didn't get to see much time on the field. Made the move to safety last year, played mostly on special teams, played in 4 games, I think, recorded 2 tackles, and now back at linebacker. it's going to be interesting to see just how much of Mills we do see because, he was a rather highly regarded JUCO prospect who just hasn't panned out the way that I'm guessing both Penn State and us have would have guessed that he would have panned out, especially perhaps unfairly so, looking at the last two players or last handful of players Penn State has got out of Lackawanna. Have all been really, high productive players for them. Primarily Jaquan Brisker and Jair Brown. Unfortunately for him, has not been the same case. But I do think the move to linebacker could open up an opportunity for him to see more playing time here in 2024.
Next up, we have another Pennsylvania native. Lamont Payne is going from cornerback, a former four-star who was a freshman last year, played in 2 games, going from cornerback to safety. Do we think we really even see him that much this year, or is this just a move for?
Yeah, I think this is just kind of a depth
team
move, and perhaps where his skill set and size, in their eyes, could be deemed best fit. And also another thing to note here, minus Flowers, who we'll talk about in a second. 3 of these 4 moves are on the defense side of the ball, so it could also be, it could be the individual coaches or position coaches, saying we think he'll be a better fit here or there. But also Tom Allen has now been at Penn State for about 2 months, give or take. So this is now an opportunity. He's had an opportunity to watch film on everybody, and I'm sure there's guys that he said I think would fit better into my defense playing here or there. And perhaps that's what happened with all of these. Perhaps it was obviously a full coaching staff decision for these types of moves, especially one with like Abdul Carter. But I think Payne moving to safety is a down the line kind of depth move for them. But they obviously have good depth at that safety position as well already.
Yeah. Last but not least, actually another Pennsylvania native. Mehki Flowers is moving from safety to wide receiver. Were we really shocked by this one? Because I know he technically was an athlete. I know he was recruited by Stubblefield out of high school.
Yeah, very good athlete at Central Dauphin East, I believe it was. Very good athlete at Central Dauphin East. Had over his last 2 years at CD East, 1,900 yards, 8 touchdowns, 112 receptions, I think. So I mean, he put up some big numbers as a wide receiver in high school. So I'm not too surprised that Penn State, made this type of move. He's somebody who I think could make an impact at that position. Maybe not a big one, but you look at what they had on the roster. You look at what they did last year at that position. You look at what they have coming into the spring. Yeah. It's in a slightly better position because you did land a Julian Fleming, but I think adding more competition to that room is never going to be a bad thing. And perhaps he surprises people and is able to, carve himself out a role in the offense in 2024.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Especially with the new OC over there as well. I'm going to go quick through the 4, and I want you to grade each position move real quick. You don't have to be like going detail or anything. I just want to know what your overall quick thoughts, like quick grade. So like Abdul Carter moving from linebacker to defense.
Somewhere in the A range, both for Penn State defensively. Time will tell with the linebackers. If they struggle at linebacker with them there, I guess he could always move back. But I'll give it an A for now, and it's obviously an A for him because defensive ends make more money in the NFL than linebackers.
Well, yeah, very true. That is a big benefit there, especially when you're probably going to have 2 defensive ends drafted this cycle.
In 2020, Micah Parsons was supposed to make a similar move to maybe not defensive end full time, but a more pass rushing oriented linebacker for Penn State. We never got to see that version of Micah Parsons at Penn State. I think this is a similar thought process with Abdul Carter. So give me an A.
Yeah, for sure. That's great start. Tyrece Mills, safety back to linebacker.
I guess a B. I mean,
kind of a weird one.
Add a little bit more depth to that linebacker room. He has some solid size. But, I mean, he just hasn't made an impact yet so far in his career. We haven't seen much of him, so it's kind of hard to guess what they're going to get there.
I'm kind of curious to see if Tom Allen uses him more as like a hybrid safety linebacker type, like where he's like closer to the box, like a better coverage guy too. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he uses them. Lamont Payne, I know these next two are kind of hard because they're so young, but Lamont Payne going from corner to safety.
Yeah, Lamont Payne going to corner safety. Like I said, good depth move. Again, I'll give this one a B just because we haven't seen him at all. But I think it's a good move for him as a player, and I think it gives Penn State some solid depth, even more depth, I should say, at that safety spot.
Yeah, and then last but not least, Mehki Flowers.
Yeah, let's give this a B plus, just because more competition in that wide receiver room can be a bad thing, and he was a very high upside athlete at Central Dauphin East. I think you said we had him as a Rivals 150 prospect. So I mean, he has
as an athlete too.
Yeah, he's not the biggest wide receiver, but I think he has the necessary skill set that he could make an impact there. It's just going to be how fast can he transition back to the wide receiver spot after spending time on the defense side of the ball.
Yeah, I remember we actually speculated when he first arrived on campus that he might get the green light as a freshman, and he didn't really. But actually, no. What did we put? No, never mind. We put red light. Take it back. Anyway. So yeah, that's all. That's really the news for today from Penn State football. In terms of recruiting, though, we did, or you did, post an article this morning about a Hawaii prospect. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, that's a big one. We were able to confirm yesterday with Hawaii safety Aiden Manate that he'll be on campus June 7th for an official visit. Also taking visits to Nebraska and Washington in the 2 weeks after that. But recently offered by the Nittany Lions earlier this month, has been in high conversating with them quite a bit, mostly Terry Smith and analyst Vic Hall, who they recently picked up from Ball State.
Hall, yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, State College is a ways away from Kahuku, Hawaii, but perhaps crazier things have happened in recruiting. And I will say, kind of on the recruiting side quickly, Penn State in the latest roster update. I'm going to go through and update the weights and such as well in an article, but a couple things that stand out here, just based off what we had them over on Rivals and what Penn State now lists them as. We had Garrett Sexton when we last updated his weight at 265. He's now at 295, according to Penn State, which is obviously quite a bit of size. Cooper Cousins up to 319. We last had him at 290. Egan Boyer is actually below weight, so sorry, misread that one. He's at 251. There was another interesting one here.
Yeah, I'm sure some of these guys were in the weight room.
T.A. Cunningham, a little bit on the smaller side than what we had him at. He's at 6'5", 252. We had him 6'6", 268. But that's just a taste of some of the bigger numbers I have seen so far here. But like I said, I'll have an article hopefully today on the rest of the notable weight changes, especially with these freshmen.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely interesting. Also take it with a grain of salt. Most of these weights that we had on their profiles were from back during their high school playing days. Different playing weight than obviously off-season weight. Some of these guys have gained quite a bit. They've also been with the program for a month now? So it makes a difference.
Here's another interesting
college strength.
Jalen Harvey already at 266. We had him at
that's impressive.
Yeah, we had him at 243, but he's now 6'2", 266. Liam Andrews 6'4", 266, so not too far off his 6'5", 270 mark.
Yeah, no, definitely interesting to see. I think that's really it.
That's all I got for today. I think a shorter episode, but like we said yesterday, we may not be too far away from even another episode here in the near future.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like we might be getting a instant reaction to a recruit very shortly. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the PSU 365 podcast. Signing off.